Hello and welcome into the JAXUSL Report once again this week. Along with Mauricio Ruiz, I'm Cole Pepper. I want to remind you to get your season ticket deposits put down for the USL Championship, the USL Super League. Just go to JAXUSL.com. Just $25 will reserve your seats for the upcoming professional soccer returning to Jacksonville. All right, we have a lot to get into, including, Mauricio, a fantastic moment for a couple of hours of soccer in our area. Last week, number one ranked Florida State came to town to take on UNF, and what an experience it was. You were there to see a 4-0 FSU win, 1-0 at halftime, and 3 goals in a 15-minute span by the Seminoles in the second half. But it wasn't really so much just about the final result. It was about everything that happened. What was your takeaway from what you saw at UNF last week?
Yeah, I think, just to touch on the game itself, just a high quality, top 5 team in the country that's constantly, fighting for championships, national team players, World Cup level players on the roster. So the quality on the field was great. But what was happening in the stands, when the community comes together and shows that kind of support, super exciting for us as a Super League, bringing women's soccer into the city, to know the amount of interest of young ladies and girls, and really even boys alike and families, to show up at 4,500 plus UNF record for a women's attendance game. It was just fantastic to see that from the sideline, to be a part of that as part of the soccer community in Jacksonville.
Yeah, and to see, again, as you mentioned, the record-setting night, 4,459 the official attendance, and a lot of interest and excitement there at UNF. All right, next up, I want to let everybody know that, as we mentioned the last couple of weeks, along with the Jaguars, there's a great soccer event coming up on the 24th of September. It is the Youth Soccer Day, presented by JAXUSL. There will be Jacksonville University soccer players and staff there. Boys and girls age 4 to 12. You can also get a ticket for the Jaguars game against the Texans there. This is all going to take place before the game on the Flex Field at Daly's Place from 10 o'clock to 11:30 in the morning. And Mauricio, this is a great opportunity to both enjoy football and football.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Jaguars, we have big expectations for them this year, but a great opportunity to kind of have the crossover of two sports and families kind of come together just for really a lot of fun. You get to be around Division I soccer players. We'll get to be there, over 100 kids, go through a little round clinics and exercises. So just tons of fun on the day. And so we're looking forward for a great partnership with the Jaguars.
Great opportunity for young soccer players as well to get out there and really get some great coaching. All right. Speaking of young soccer players, a little older than that, but a young U.S. men's national team getting some action here this week, including on Saturday, a 3-0 win over Uzbekistan, an early goal by Tim Weah in the 4th minute, and then a couple of stoppage time goals by the U.S., Ricardo Pepi and Christian Pulisic, who scored on a penalty kick in stoppage time. 3-0 with the win in St. Louis. They also face Oman on Tuesday. So, Mauricio, in the big picture, what's important for the U.S. in this phase as they start looking forward to the World Cup?
Yeah, I see 2 things, Cole. I see consistency coming off of a good World Cup, but now you're adding some really key players, and Balogun being probably the biggest one of them. We've talked about not having a number 9 for a long time. A couple players, you see Pepi, had a really nice goal. But how do we get him consistency with players around him and build it off of the World Cup? But also get a new cycle of some refresh players that maybe we haven't seen in the previous cycle. Young players that are kind of coming up, because you have time now, right? So how do we solidify a pretty good roster, make it even better, but at the same time, how do we keep some consistency so we can improve?
And it's consistency through some inconsistency from a coaching standpoint to go from one coaching staff to another, and then back to the first head coach now working their way forward. That sort of rise and fall with the waves, something that's can be tricky for players to handle, but now there should be some level of comfort with most of these guys who have played for Greg Berhalter.
Yeah, and I probably wasn't a great performance, and I think a little bit of that was the fact what you're talking about, kind of coming back as a unit, just feeling comfortable again, even though there's some uncomfortness that happened. Still the access to Gio Reyna, how's that going to get played out? He's not in this group, on this call up. So I think there's some things that still need to get sorted out. But can this team get to the point of where we hope the U.S. can, especially host it in 2026? Right? So can these 3 years be a really productive 3 years? Can these groups stay consistent, stay healthy, and really show that maybe we can challenge for a semifinal? Right? It's not, you got Croatia, you got Turkey, you got other team Morocco getting to semifinals of the World Cup. we're not a lesser nation and we don't have lesser players, so I think the expectation is pretty high.
There will be high expectations and some pressure as well once 2026 rolls around. All right, let's take a close look now at what's happening with the USL Championship as we're getting down to the nitty-gritty and some of the results from this past week. You see Pittsburgh and Charleston, who are both battling for the top spot in the East. They both come away with victories. Tampa Bay is hot on the heels there as well with a win. You've got some teams at the top of the East playing very well. But I want to point out Las Vegas Lights, a 3-1 victory over the Oakland Roots. Despite that, Las Vegas eliminated from playoff contention, but they're still battling.
They're still battling. I think we talk about these players are fighting for contracts, right? So even though you might be in and out of the playoff, you might be eliminated from contention for postseason, you still want to fight for your next contract, whether it's within your club or somewhere else. So now maybe the pressure is even off. Some of these guys from Las Vegas might just play freely now because they may not be playing for their club. They might be playing for themselves. So you might get some good performances, and maybe they have the chip on the shoulder to ruin somebody else's playoff opportunity as well.
Well, let's take a look at the standings and see how it all sets out right now. Starting with the West, you see Sacramento Republic and San Antonio in an absolute dogfight right now. To take a look at what's happening there out west, remember that Sacramento does have a game in hand on San Antonio, so they do have the inside edge. Although Sacramento had dropped 2 of their last 3 matches, that's why it's gotten so tight there. And Orange County, unbeaten in their last 5. They did draw last time out, but they're on the move as well. We'll see if they have enough time, enough space to make up the gap there at the top. But again, look at the playoff line. El Paso, a team that a couple of months ago we thought might challenge for the top spot. Boy, they have gone in the opposite direction.
Yeah, and it's tight at the top and it's tight at the bottom there. See Monterey, El Paso. I think the bottom 3 probably have knocked themselves off. But you got between Colorado Switchbacks, Monterey Bay, and El Paso, you really could be anyone making up that 8 spot. So it should be interesting with the last 2-3 weeks left into the season.
All right, let's take a look at the Eastern Conference. Just as intriguing. You have 3 teams that have now clinched playoff spots: Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay, Charleston Battery. All of those teams still in contention to perhaps have the top seed in the Eastern Conference. What catches your eye about the table here, particularly beyond those top 3?
Well, you still have Memphis with a couple games in hand. So Memphis can really climb up to 4th spot. Louisville has been interesting. They've been sitting in that 4th and 5th spot for a while. They're not taking advantage of the points that are given to them, the easier points, and they are losing to the teams on top of the league. So they're not claiming anybody that's ahead of them. But when they get an opportunity to just climb a little bit with teams at the bottom, they're stumbling as well. So they've been a little bit inconsistent. But I just want to see how Memphis finishes the season and just evens things out. And they're on a good stretch right now, but they're one team that I think might impact the entire table.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that as we get down. Just depending on which team you're talking about, could be somewhere between 3, 4, 5 matches remaining in the season before the playoffs begin. Time now for our Game of the Week presented by Got Sport, and we go back out west to take a look at a very entertaining matchup between Colorado Springs Switchbacks and also San Antonio FC. A couple of teams that like to play some wide open soccer, and boy, did we see it.
Yeah, Switchbacks, probably one of the funnest teams to watch, and I think they get caught on the backside a little bit because they play really wide open, but their front 3, front 4, about as good and exciting as anybody else. Great atmosphere, one of the better stadiums into the league. So San Antonio coming in there, typically a team that plays tight, but they play off on the counter. So when they counter, they do expose themselves a little bit. And this is a game that could have gone 2-3 back and forth. The expected goals in this game were 2.5 for each team. Really some wide open chances. So I just want to show you kind of starts right away. The player that had a great first half, Oluwasi, number here 16. 2 minutes into the game, really could have put this away early, tried to chip, and just didn't get enough on it.
But this was sort of indicative of what you saw, though, throughout the course of this game. Great opportunities for both sides.
Yeah, you see Tariq McGee, probably one of the best players, captain there, puts in Foster, a speedy player. First touch, just let him out, just outside of this frame. But 10 minutes into the game, we really could have gone 1-1 both ways.
And we saw goalkeepers making some plays. We saw the goals making some plays, and sometimes just shots that didn't stay on frame. But again, half hour in, more opportunities there for San Antonio.
Yeah, you see Oluwasi, big target forward, number 16, had plenty of chances early into the game, just didn't put them away. Herrera for Switchbacks, goalkeeper, doing a really, really good job of keeping the game 0-0.
Here we are, 39th minute, and another opportunity for Colorado Springs.
And Tyler McGee again, coach left foot, right off the bar. I mean, this would have put this crowd into a frenzy, making it 1-0. But second half coming back, Oluwasi just all over, great cut back, and just couldn't get enough on it to make it a 1-0 game.
Again, a little bit of framework there, and just into the 71st minute, again, San Antonio finding a spot, and what a strike here.
Yeah, what a great strike. I mean, this game was quality all over. Hernandez doing a great job of just keeping his ball alive off of a bad clearance. See there from the center back of switchbacks. And where it slips, gets up. Poor defending, in my opinion, here. But Patino, what a finish here to put outside of his boot. Upper 90, really nothing Herrera could do here to make it a 1-0.
So calm, too, with it. Really kept his composure in a moment which could have gotten away from him. Instead, 1-0 San Antonio at that point. Colorado Springs looking for an equalizer.
See, these are the kind of players that switchbacks have. Individual players that can really take players on. And he did the hardest work by taking 4 or 5 players on and just couldn't put it away with the finish.
Now, 84th minute. Again, Colorado Springs trying to get the equalizer. And here it comes.
And just really cool story here. Second goal of the season for 16-year-old Marco Rios. Not accustomed to scoring goals. Doesn't really know what to do. He's looking for someone to hug. Game's not over. Can we get back? But at least he gets the point for his team. 16 years old, playing in front of his home crowd, in front of his family. Just a really cool experience for him.
What an amazing moment for him to be able to have that moment and a 1-1 draw in the end. Next week, we'll be taking a look at San Antonio once again as they take on the Tampa Bay Rowdies. This is a matchup potentially could be a preview of the USL Championship final. You never know. East against West here, two of the big contenders in our game of the week presented by Got Sport. It's getting down to it. This is going to be fun as we get closer to the
boy, and that's why I chose this two teams. I know we just covered San Antonio, but now the games are of consequence, right? So now you're not only trying to two teams that have the legitimate chance of winning a regular season title, and I know that they're fighting for it, but you also want to get as high as possible. You don't want to fall back into that third or fourth spot, and it's so tight in both of the standings that from now on we're just going to look at games of consequence because the quality's there, but the excitement and the passion as well.
We'll be taking a closer look at that game coming up next week here on the JAXUSL Report. For Mauricio Ruiz, I'm Cole Pepper. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to get the very latest from JAXUSL.